happy Pride, everyone. Since it's Pride, I have two stories for you all. All right, here we go. This is one. The first one is case 52 from the Blue Cliff Records. It's a koan. How does it relate to Pride? We'll find out here. A monk asked Joshu, a monk asked Joshu, long have I heard of the stone bridge of Joshu, but now that I have gotten here, I see only a simple log bridge. Joshu said, you just see the log bridge. You don't see the stone bridge. The monk asked, what is the stone bridge? Joshu said, it lets asses across, it lets horses cross. So there's a koan, Thomas Cleary translation from the Blue Cliff Record. So just people have a sense, Joshu Jushin was famous Zen master. The same guy that did the Mu koan, does a dog have Buddha nature? Which you probably have heard of. He was ordained at a young age, and supposedly he did not even start teaching till he was 80. That's pretty good. And he lived to be 120. I don't know. In a talk at Sokoji, Shunryu Suzuki Roshi, in April 64, comment on the case about Joshu. He appreciated the bare life of ancient patriarchs and used only a broken-legged chair, repaired by a piece of firewood. Throughout the 40 years during which he lived the simplest form of life in his monastery, he never wrote a single page of a letter begging for his support. So Joshu was really known to be, pithy and succinct. He replied, Hakuin, one of the commentator, said, Joshu Zen is lip Zen. Zen. His whole body is a mouth. This is so-called verbal samadhi. Even like comments. All right. So I don't know if people know, but Zen masters are known by the mountain that they teach from. This is why in Zen, when you become abbot, you ascend the mountain. That's the expression, because that's how you become Dharma, a Beisho, right? So mountains are named, or the master takes the name of the mountain. So in this case, this is a town in northeastern China, famous for a particular stone arch bridge, constructed during the Sui dynasty, which is 851 to 618, still the largest and oldest stone bridge in the world of this design. Okay, so that's the first story. The second story is case 10,002 from a very heavy tome entitled A Record of Lien's Life in the 21st Century. A lesbian said, long have I heard of the San Francisco Pride Parade, but now that I've gotten here, I see only a mass of sweaty people. The second lesbian said, you just see a mass of sweaty people. You don't see the Pride Parade. The first lesbian asked, what is the Pride Parade? The second lesbian answers, it lets lesbians dance, it lets queers dance. Obviously, I made up this koan. But it is based on a compilation of, various years of visitors. I know when I lived far from here, I would come and, Pride Parade is one of the biggest in California, if not the country. I think it's only superseded by the Rose Parade, and who knows these days too. But you know, we're famous for this, right? And so many of us think it should be fun and exciting. And in fact, you know, that's what people come all across the country. And I will say that, you know, often lesbians come and they say, oh, after the dykes on bikes, where the heck are the lesbians? Right? A lot of guys in skimpy clothes dancing. And these days, a lot of beer trucks, a lot of corporations making their diversity. You know, a few years ago, I was with the San Francisco Zen Center to do the march. And it's just like one big group of corporate sponsorship after the other. I mean, I remember the days when we had serious floats, you know, really major floats though. So for many, it can be a big disappointment. So for that lesbian or the monk or us, right? So we say, well, we come to X event, maybe today. You know, you're like, oh, I expected more. Who is she? You know, she's gonna give a talk, right? So we have these expectations. So in the koan, the monk, we're not dissing Joshu completely, challenges him when he said, long have I heard of the stone bridge, a very famous stone bridge, but now that I've heard it, I see a simple log bridge. Again, Suzuki Roshi on the commentary says, this monk came to Joshu ignoring the great master's prestige. So the monk in essence is coming and saying, hey, you're supposed to be this great Zen master that I've heard so much about, that I've come, you know, many miles to visit and to study with you, but you're just an ordinary person. So for the monk, it's the bridge or the Zen master. For the lesbian, it's parade. But we all have our own version. Probably many versions given any day. In fact, I'll tell you, as I was bending to look at Mark, I thought, oh, look, there's a pride flag behind. I better go make sure I take a picture because my social media person is always going, oh, we need more pictures. And then I was like, oh, I should have told Shinsen to take a picture from over there because she's like, especially these days, right? There are not that many pictures of me with a crowd because my Sangha has shrunk. I'm online a lot. So already, you know, these days we're like, what makes a good picture for my Instagram? Right? So much of it is this our sense of what should be or what could be or what makes some image instead of being present. Now, you know, that's just us. But here's another example. This was in the late 1980s. I lived in Grand Forks, and it's actually my only time I've seen the Dalai Lama. But he came to the University of North Dakota, and he was in the gym. And you know, at the end, to be perfectly honest, I have no memory of what his talk was, right? And I was up in the rafters, and but I remember this guy came up to ask a question at the end, and was this the 1980s? And anybody been to Grand Forks, North Dakota, or that area, right? Really meat and potato kind of country. And so this guy had a long braid, and he came up and he said, could you please say something about vegetarianism? And the Dalai Lama said, what? And his translator, you know, say, can you please say something about vegetarianism? So the Dalai Lama said, when I eat meat, I'm not a vegetarian. When I eat vegetable, I'm a vegetarian. And so the guy, you know, say, can you please say something more? And he's like, so just restated himself. So the guy goes up. I'm a vegan, but now I am, right? So, so the guy goes flouncing off, and I remember his braid just like vigorously swaying. So again, we take these questions, and I'm saying it in a way that is, I'm not really trying to make fun of it, just for the way that we can have expectations of people, and we want people to tell us our agenda, right? To reflect our agenda, and I don't think that's a bad thing, right? However, when is it that it gets in the way, our agenda, our expectations, our sense of how things should be? When does it get in the way of what's actually in front of us? Right here, right now. To be honest, I have the gist of my talk. I have a sense, right? I know what I want to say. And part of me wanted to just say, you know what? I'm just not going to look at this stuff. I'm just going to ask you guys and talk to you guys, because I see you guys like once a year, right? Just to find out how you are. So we could do that, but maybe I'll summarize this real fast, right? And then we can do that. So we build up, right, in many ways, that our expectations of things. Now, the thing is, we're limited then by that. This is the irony of practice, when we realize that so much of our thinking, right, and our beliefs are actually very limiting, because it's based on our sense. Especially, I wonder how many of you guys had been here. I was wondering, year after year, you come and you have a certain expectation, right? Now, when does it concretize, and when does it make it harder to, maybe this morning you thought, oh, I don't know, it'll be cold in there. I don't know, should I go? Same places for brunch afterwards. I'm just so tired of all those young tech people driving the prices up, right? Me myself, I'm like, oh, is there going to be vegan stuff around I can eat, right? So just stuff that we keep on bringing up. But Joshu said, you just see the log bridge. You don't see the stone bridge. There is a stone bridge. It's famous, but this person saw it based on the expectation. We can't see what is here. Suzuki Roshi on the commentary in this koan also says, now the monk was caught in Joshu's gift box of duality, right? The intellectual problem, or the right and wrong, or the this and that, or the dichotomy. And then he says, the interplay of the subjective and the objective. So on a certain level, we can't actually practice to not have expectations, because expectations, people understand in Buddhism that most of your thoughts are based on associative thinking. You know that, right? Skillful thinking in the Eightfold Path is essentially how we have do people know about the 6 sense doors? Should I summarize? Okay. So the 6 sense doors in Buddhism, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So these are organs in Buddhism. And then when the organ makes contact with an object, then Vedana comes up. People know Vedana, pleasant, unpleasant, and technically neither pleasant or unpleasant, which most of us are taught as neutral. Now, like I say, neutral is not Switzerland, right? In Buddhism, neutral is not the place you want to be in. Not necessarily. Neutral is literally, in Vedana, just means neither pleasant or unpleasant, or present. So these are kind of reactive. And then we use associative things to keep on verifying that first reaction we have. Now, those reactions are often conditioned. So while we are, as humans, as beings, even in amoebas, you can say amoeba pulling away or going towards, right? These are our habitual responses. The key is to understand which is your favorite. Because that's going to be your one that you fall to because it's conditioned and it's your go-to. Now, life circumstances, condition you. For instance, actually, I love to do this. So let's think now. How do you figure out which is your favorite Vedana? All right. So you are walking down the Castro. You have been invited to a party in the Castro. Now you get to the door of the party and you look in, and what do you hear yourself evaluating? Do you go, wow, this looks like a really fun place. Look at those flower arrangement. They must have gotten them from blah, blah, blah. That's really beautiful. Oh, and look at that guy. Look at that person. Look at that shirt. I'm going to go ask where they got it. The food looks great. I'm going to ask who's catering. Wow, so glad to be here. Or do you go to the door and you look in and you say, oh, that arrangement's from Trader Joe's. So is the cheese. It's the same cheese as at every party from Trader Joe's. Look at that guy's shirt. I would not go talking to him because I might look bad standing next to that person. Or do you get to the door and you go, is this the right address? I don't know. I don't know. Should I be here? Did I want to come? Should I leave? Should I go get some brunch instead? I don't know. Right? I'm confused. Right? So these are kind of ways that you can think this is your go-to. Everyone close your eyes, except for me. So no one judges you except me. Okay. All right, close your eyes. Who are the aversive type? The ones who liked everything at the party. Okay, hands down. Who are the ones that are like, same flower arrangement. Okay, and who are the ones that are like, I'm not sure I want to be here. Okay, all right. Oh, yeah, partners might want to know each other's thing. You can have a talk about it afterwards. Now, the key, actually, is actually to, remember I said to know your type. Because what happens then is that you know that this is the way your mind falls into. Now, one way to work with that is to say, oh, that is bad. I do not want to have that mind state. So I'm going to do, I'm the aversive type. So I'm going to do the affirmations. Cheeses are good. Trader Joe's is good, right? I could do that. Or I could go, oh, something's wrong with me. I'm just gonna get rid of all my bad thoughts. How can I just work really hard to get rid of my bad thoughts, or I should be maybe more pleasure in my life. I need more pleasure in my life. That's how I'm gonna, correct myself. You can do those. However, these things are conditioned and they tend to be here for a long time, right? Probably on my deathbed, I will still be going. That picture needs to be probably. Now, the key in practice is actually to know that, and then non-thinking in Zen or in Buddhism, it's not that we don't have the thought. Non-thinking means we're not disturbed by the thought. We didn't get caught in the patterns that the thoughts bring. We don't get caught in the patterns that the thoughts bring. Now, Deb, my girlfriend, is actually an aversive type too, thank goodness, right? But we can bring each other down. But often, before any event, one of us will hear the other one going, I do not want to go, even though you bid for the job or whatever. And then, I don't want to go. It's probably going to be, it's probably going to be, right? And then now luckily we say, that's your papancha. So your associative thinking and grouping, right? Your proliferation, the story of your Vedana, really. So we go, you'll have a good time once you go, right? Instead of resting in that aversion and looking for reasons to keep doing. Now, sometimes our friends can help us check ourselves, for sure. I had a friend who said, oh, I'd love to invite you to parties. And I was like, what? Because I'm always looking for reasons not to go to parties. And she said, well, you can talk to anyone. And I thought, oh, that's true. Once I make it into the party, I love talking to people, like I realize with time, bigger groups is harder. So I talk to one or two people more, right? But I actually can and do, I'm interested, but I have to get over that hurdle of my conditioned thinking, which has a lot of expectations in it, doesn't it? That it would either be mostly good, mostly bad, or just confusing as heck. So we want to have that sense so that we figure out how do we harmonize our lives, right? Since I know that I'm an aversive type, I'm going to make that point to actually engage more, because my go-to is like, And when I know and I remember that my engagement actually does bring a lot of pleasure, then I'm willing to make that effort. I'm willing to just give it a little bit more, even though it feels diseaseful, it feels uncomfortable. And so I lean in more when my tendency is to lean back. So we also tend to separate from our experience, right? That's how we make decisions in some way. We go, okay, that's not how it should be. That's one way of separating. So again, you just see the log bridge, you don't see the stone bridge. You just see a mass of sweaty people, you don't see the pride parade. In the Genjo Koan, Dogen, the founder of Soto Zen, by the way, the Genjo Koan translation is the actualization of reality. It says, for example, when you sail out in a boat to the midst of an ocean where no land is in sight, view the four directions, the ocean looks circular and does not look any other way. But the ocean is neither round nor square. Its features are infinite in variety. All things are like this. Though there are many features in the dusty world and the world beyond conditions, you see and understand only what your eye of practice can reach. So we have the eye organ and we have the object of the eye organ, and then we have the interaction. And so the eye of Dharma is the one that actually doesn't negate that we have associative thoughts, that we have tendency. It takes that into account. It discerns, right? What is in some ways the fundamental wisdom? It's not information in Buddhism, even though there are lots of lists, and it's good to memorize them to have a sense. But really the epitome of wisdom in Buddhism is discernment, because that's where you make your decision in each moment, harmonizing, balancing, figuring out which thoughts, which motivation you want to engage with in this moment, and you want to be responsible for, and you want your life to be about. Each moment you have that choice. If your eye of practice says, oh yeah, I see that, I see the shirt, I have aversion, and oh, look above the shirt. Nice eyes, friendly eyes. Let me go talk to that person. So with practice, we actually, the Dharma helps us to both see our patterns of thinking, our patterns of perceiving, our patterns of interpreting the contacts, right? As they are. Simply as thoughts, right? And knowing that those thoughts, when we put a lot of concretizing around them, when we hang on to and we are catched by the series of beliefs that go with it, then can it bring more joy or does it bring more suffering? A monk asked Joshu, "Long have I heard of the stone bridge of Joshu, but now that I've gotten here, I see only a simple log bridge." Joshu said, "You just see the log bridge, you don't see the stone bridge." The monk then asked, "What is the stone bridge?" A lesbian said, "Long have I heard of the San Francisco Pride Parade, but now that I've gotten here, I see only a mess of sweaty people, especially with the heat wave coming." The second lesbian said, "You just see a mass of sweaty people, you don't see the Pride Parade." The first lesbian asked, "What is the Pride Parade?" The second lesbian answered, "It lets lesbians dance, it lets queers dance." Maybe we can perhaps hear the first sentence, not so much as a challenge or complaint, but as an expression of sincere search for relief. Right? Sometimes our complaints, when we turn and really look at them, we can see, oh, what is the essence here that I'm actually wanting? If I want engagement, if I want community, then how do I stay connected instead of just evaluating and walking away? Maybe the monk or the first lesbian is really saying, I'm suffering. I'm not comfortable in this life of mine. It's not what I thought it would be. Maybe they're asking, what is the purpose of my life? What is my purpose? Isn't a life that's purposeful and fulfilling, full of the grandness that I think should come with it? Right? Isn't that in some ways really fundamentally the earnestness of a question, whether it comes through complaint or comes through fawning, maybe, right? Maybe he's really saying, the monk or the lesbian, I heard Joshu, or whatever is we're holding up, that you can help me. Right? The grandness is, I hear there are answers here. And yet I only see ordinariness. Is this what I'm searching for? And Joshu, in his infinite kindness, answered, right? It lets asses cross. It lets horses cross. Really ordinary stuff. So nothing more than simple, ordinary life. Especially for those of us here, live in the Bay Area. Big Pride's great. Pride's great. And it's just our ordinary life, isn't it? Every day, every moment, we live with the same heart and the same mind and the same body, moment after moment. Let's keep changing, of course. So what if the sense of the grandness of our life is actually really deeply embedded in seeing the magic of our ordinary life. Right? There's the pride. There's a reason we call it Pride Parade. What is the pride of our life, the pride of our community, the pride of our queerness, right? How do we keep that be the expression and the connection as we continue? Again, Genjo Koan says further, in order to learn the nature of the myriad things, you must know that although they may look round or square, the other features of oceans and mountains are infinite in variety. Whole worlds are there. It is so not only around you, but directly beneath your feet. So I'll say to you, not only is it around you, but also directly beneath your feet, if you're willing to let go of the beliefs that you have concretized around. Are you willing to drop your expectations, your ideas of how things should be, could be, and just be with what is, things as it is? The Pali word prajna, which is translated as wisdom, literally means knowledge of things as they are. What we discern is how we make that contact. What is the quality of our awareness? We do have the ability to live with the awareness to allow for things to be as they are. So can we go to Frameline or Pride or brunch just to be present completely? Sekihara Roshi, in the Essence of Zen, says, things that we can see and hear do not exist because we believe they do. They exist apart from a person's thought. That which exists separately from the thoughts of the ego self, and with which there is no room for interference on the part of the ego self, is the Dharma. I'll say that again. Things that we can see and hear do not exist because we believe they do. They exist apart from a person's thought. That which exists separately from the thoughts of the ego self, and with which there's no room for interference on the part of the ego self, is the Dharma. Now you may say, okay, well, I can see that about a thing, but now what if we thought about that as a person or a group of people? They don't exist because we think they should exist in a certain way. In some ways, honestly, for me, that's harder with people we have a lot of expectations about. Family, partners, friends, sangha mates. So can we bring this mind of heart and mind, of just allowing each of us to reveal ourselves. And we, as the ego self, things as I think they should be, just get out of the way and let this moment be what it is. Can we just let asses cross and horses cross, or lesbians dance, queers dance? And we let ourselves be ordinary, magical beings. Thank you. All right, I'd love to interact with you all in this.
Thank you so much. So much of what you talked about today relates to what's going on in my life now. But I was thinking I don't know, I mean, I live my life and there's lots of painful moments and things are happening and I hate it and I judge it and I don't want it. But overall, when I let myself just look back on my life is when meaning happens.
Look back in your life and what?
Meaning happens. And I don't even think about purpose. But when I look at my life, things have happened that have made it very special to me. When I look back, it may not have been happening special in the moment, but looking back and I don't know if that relates to the purpose of your talk today, but for me, Buddhism has allowed me to look back on what's happened and accept it, appreciate it, and find I was able to tolerate the tough stuff better than I thought I might have.
Yeah, I think, let me see if this, what's come out for me when you're saying is. In essence, actually, we're always looking back because there's no future, right? You just will fantasize about the future. And each moment we're here, we're actually already looking back. Because we don't know what to do otherwise. This is why, you know, you go to retreat to be right here, but it takes what, 3-4 days before you're barely here? You know, maybe for one bite during lunch or, you know, 2 seconds on the cushion or chair, right? Or maybe it increases, certainly. But in some ways, we're already looking back. So practice helps us realize, oh, I'm always looking back. And so, if the meaning of my life is my purpose, then what the fuck am I going to do right now to have the meaning I want? I know before practice, I was like, right? And reactive about things, right? Having expectations, trying to make things work. And you know, I still do that, mind you. But now with practice, I go, oh, the purpose isn't the what so much. I think this is where wisdom comes with, I would say, age, not only chronological age, but also maturity of age, practice age, whatever kind of age you want to say, right? With time and constancy of practice, we really realize, oh, I actually have a lot of agency to determine the meaning of my life by the quality that I bring to it. I get less important in the what, right? I let go of when I find that I'm stuck in the what and it's hurting me or someone else or my relationship. And I remember what's important. What is the purpose? And more it becomes about the connection, which is much more about the interaction between us and not so much about things of how we interact. Though those things, you know, we build containers to manifest or to create conditions for us to get what we want, the purpose that we find valuable. And by that, I mean shared values too, right? So is that trying to address it?
I still think of it a little bit differently from what you're saying. To me, the purpose is not what I plan my life that have happened, but it's what I observe when I look back on what's happened, that I realized apparently there was a purpose. It wasn't conscious in the moment, but looking back, there was a look. I did accomplish things. Other people appreciated what I said and did. That's really special. But it's from a viewpoint from the past. So now look at the past. If I want to get too Buddhist about it, I live in the moment and think of the past.
Yes.
Thank you again, very enlightening. It will be wonderful to review the audio. My hearing's not that good, but what I presume I heard was the elegance of the idea of, and especially as you filled out the idea that we're always looking back, is that the cutting edge of always being present is always a point of choice. And the practice, as we practice, as we refine our ability to see and choose wisely, is an act of grace, of giving ourselves spaciousness, so that even when we're looking back, we have the spaciousness to reform our own viewpoint of ourselves. And therefore, in an odd way, all those memories allow us to create the home that we've always wanted to arrive at. So that it is all in the past, but it's still right there at the moment that we're always entering that doorway of being home with ourselves. So, thank you.
Yes, but that's your story.
Yeah, that's my story.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with it.
Yeah, I like it. The thing I'm pausing on is only, I think, here's the thing, the other thing I think a lot about is, all my life, honestly, I've looked back and thought, all right, bad haircut if nothing else. Now I don't have to worry so much. So, so I think with practice, what we do is we start to realize we can either keep holding on to stuff that makes us suffer, how I could have been, that haircut should have been, like I'm making light up something easy, but also big things in our life. So with practice, we also learn forgiveness, we learn patience, we learn mercy, we learn compassion. And so that's the stuff that helps us sort out what is the meaning of my life. What meaning do I want to put on my life? And in a way, every moment you're deciding what is the meaning of your life. That's one way to approach your life. I know for many years, I lived my life thinking my meaning of my life fucking sucks. All right? Not enough of this, I'm the averse of that. Not enough of this, not enough of that. And some of it were completely true, not just my own decision, right? Not just my own association. And I know that with practice, I actually, here's another piece to it, is that with practice, here's the thing. We practice to have the spaciousness of being able to allow for things to be as they are. And how do we do that? For many of us, we actually have to get to the edges of our suffering. And to me, practice, and certainly in retreat, we get to the edges of our suffering. And in fact, every fucking retreat, I get to the edge of my suffering. Where is it that I do not think I will survive this suffering? Be it a knee pain, be it emotional pain or mental pain, right? And with practice, we have tools about how do we harmonize so that it doesn't overwhelm us and we run the other way or we turn away and we don't keep needing it. But in a way, our practice is always to touch the edge of where we think we cannot survive. Where the meaning overwhelms me and I can't make sense of it. And this is why we need support at those moments. And yet I know I go to practice. I mean, I consciously, maybe now I think about it, to get to those edges and say, oh, the meaning of those edges change when I meet myself there. Right? Whereas before I think, oh, there's that edge. I can't get there. I will not survive that edge, be it grief, be it whatever it is, shame. And yet I go to meet that and I go, oh, it's not going to overwhelm me because I have a different I put a different meaning, be it about myself or the situation or people. What is it I can put it down so that I can find a meaning that's enlivening versus a meaning that's dead? That's how I have lived happier, for sure. And to me, that's a huge gift of practice. It gives me both a sense of defining my edge and to learn to build a capacity to hold those edges. And then, you know, with help from sanghas, from teachers, to work through my expectations of what will happen at the edges, who I will be, who you will be, who whatever life will be. Yes.
Hi, thank you very much. A lot to think about. So I'm aversive for sure. And when I'm going through a rough time in my life, I either get depressed and withdraw and judge myself, or I get afraid and anxious. I'm in the latter right now. And yesterday I just stopped and went, oh my God, I was so upset yesterday. Maybe I could just breathe and relax. And just for the last day, it's been like, oh, that's, you know, it's so helpful. And during those times, I don't stop and think, oh, I'm suffering. I sort of try not to do the affirmation and just to be there. So it feels like if I focus on the suffering, which I know we're supposed to do as a good Buddhist, that I'll just feel worse. And I'm already feeling like shit. So that's.
Yeah, so a good Buddhist is, as one of my teachers says, you know what? We're not practicing to go look for suffering. We're not practicing to go look for suffering. Suffering's already here. That's the key. When you realize you're suffering, we start to learn that we have tools for how to be with that suffering, how to define it, how to work with it. Even that pause is a learned thing. In fact, it's the practice to go, oh, that I'm suffering like this. You know, before practice, I just suffer through, you know, or not through as in like work through, but like I'm just consumed by it. And I'm obsessed by it. Remember the quality of clinging. Remember the tanha, the cause of suffering in Buddhism, isn't desire itself, even though that's the word. It's the obsessiveness of the desire. It's the one you can't figure out what to do with, and it loops and loops and loops. The story just goes round and round and you can't get out, right? And that brings with it anxiety, or you're so tired you collapse, right? Or you're running from it or whatever. So first is to learn those reactive things, but certainly it's also learning that, oh, just pausing to turn to it can be a relief. And in fact, it's all the either the wallowing, by that I don't mean in a bad way, right? That I'm just stuck in it. You know, the image that comes to mind is like quicksand, right? You're just stuck in it. Or the running is just making you tired, or the whatever collapses, you know, not engaging. So that in itself to me isn't so much, we turn towards suffering to understand it more clearly, how we don't have to suffer. Because I have to remember the third noble truth, right? Buddhism, remember Buddha said, I teach suffering and the end of suffering, right? He didn't just say, I teach suffering and fuck you, all right? No, seriously, he didn't go that, right? He didn't go that. He didn't go here. Suffering, that's it, right? The third noble truth is the good news of Buddhism. It really is. And we practice to learn more confidence in the third noble truth. And we practice to realize, oh, actually, when I turn towards suffering, I can see ways in which I don't have to suffer. Thich Nhat Hanh says one way he defines the second noble truth is the making of suffering. What part of suffering are we contributing and making? Individually or collectively, of course, right? So then when we know that, then we say, oh, I don't want that. So the other way to think about the Four Noble Truths, right, is it's the effect. If there's suffering, what are the causes? The third noble truth is there doesn't have to be suffering. What are the causes? And classically, it's the Eightfold Path. When I practice the Eightfold Path, the cause for non-suffering is strengthened. If I keep doing the stuff in the second noble truth, then it strengthens suffering. Right? Just as a framework, of course, then how do we do it and how do we keep engaging with it is the practice.